I want to talk about the election, specifically the 2020 US presidential election. You might have heard of it. People seem to be very, very worked up over it, but not me. I am calm. My peace of mind doesn't come from some enlightened centrism where I imagine that both sides really need to calm down and find some common ground. That things have just gotten so divisive recently, and when did politics become so political? No, I am just absolutely rock solid and dead steady because I know that voting in this election simply doesn't matter. Now, before you get angry with me, and oh, please don't get mad at me, I just wouldn't be able to handle it. I want to clarify what I mean, which I'm sure will allow for a reasonable and calm discussion. All I mean when I say voting doesn't matter in this election is that filling out the bubble next to Joe Biden or Donald Trump's name on your ballot won't make a goddamn difference whatsoever. What I'm saying is that the myopic focus on voting in a presidential election sets up an ethical dilemma in a practical, useless, purely theoretical way. You know the trolley problem? How there's a trolley on the tracks and will hit and certainly kill 1 or 5 people depending on whether or not you pull the lever directing it to the other track? This thought experiment is useful enough in an introductory philosophy class to explain the differences between systems of ethics, but people don't really think about it just like that. They think about it as if it's a situation in which there's a right and wrong answer. Like how you might be hanging out with your friends late one night and you get into a game of Would You Rather and you argue about whether or not you eat a bowl of hair for $1 million. Would you eat a bowl of hair for $1 million? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've limited the domain of action to just electoral politics, then yeah, voting becomes the operation and trivially the only thing worth thinking through. And I think it's reasonable to conclude that the field of possibilities has been so limited by an overwhelming focus on whether or not you vote in the election. I can't scroll through my precious content feeds without being confronted by sallow-faced celebrities talking about Joe Biden and ice cream, I think. Obama took over my weather app for a day. Living in Wisconsin, I get postcards 4 days a week just checking in with a friendly reminder to send in my ballot. Oh, and by the way, and I don't even know why I'm mentioning it, but just so you know, whether or not you vote is a matter of public record, so I'm sure we can count on you to do the right thing. Voting certainly is something some people can do, but when you've limited the conversation to which track the trolley is on, you're not engaging at all with why people might be tied to the rails in the first place. Some very smart and good people I know have decided that there are some victories to be made in the realm of electoral politics, and I don't mean to completely disagree with them at all. If the question really was only, would I prefer there to be somebody in the White House who at least says that he believes in climate change versus somebody else, then yes, I technically have a preference, but I reject that framing. I also fundamentally reject the pressure of this specific election. I think a big part of the liberal response to Trump's presidency is embarrassment. Embarrassment that he's made a disgrace of the office of the presidency, that he's made a mockery of our institutions, and he's sullied the principles for which the United States of America is supposed to stand. By the way, you ever notice how people say the United States of America in full when they're trying to make some grandiose point? Like, just saying its full name carries with it some sort of respectability and automatic gravitas? Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America. Yeah, dude, I'm in my basement. Maybe if you were also in my basement, you'd know that the United States of America sucks and has forever. For more information on how the US government sucks, learn anything about it. Once I unshackled myself from the belief that the character of our country is at stake, I began to see things a lot more clearly. Firstly, just getting away from the liberal hysteria and hand-wringing is just good for my mental health. But more importantly, I believe that seeing this as a long-term project with many, many moving pieces and with voting as just a tiny piece of the puzzle and maybe not in the puzzle at all, I think that gives a much more accurate perspective. By the way, all of this assumes that voting is even representative in the first place, the possibility of which generations of gerrymandering and voter suppression has functionally eliminated. I think there's a very convincing argument to be made that even on its face, voting has been rigged far beyond the point of farce. And I suppose this is as good a time as any to, I guess, make a confession. I did vote. But I didn't vote because I thought it would make a difference at all in the outcome of the election. I voted only as a way of holding myself accountable, doing something really small and completely meaningless as a step towards doing something far more important, like organizing in my community or providing mutual aid. I absolutely did not vote because Facebook told me to, or I thought it was a referendum on my own moral character. In fact, the celebrities who were screaming into their front-facing cameras at hillbillies like me trying to bully us into returning our ballots only made me consider throwing it away altogether. This is a gesture to myself, an acknowledgement that there is a long, long road to actual justice. This is not strategic in any way. I am under no illusions that Biden can be pushed left. This is an exercise in digesting the shit that the societal order forces us to eat. Not no, we gotta get used to compromise and incrementalism, but in not letting my very real hatred for liberals cloud my 10,000 foot, perfectly zen, might I remind you, view of the larger project. Under no circumstances would I prescribe that you make the same decision that I did. If you think that there are harm reduction reasons to having Biden in the White House over Trump, I can see the logic in that. But if you think that the morality of our societal order is at stake here, I would urge you to reconsider and maybe take some of the pressure off. In a very meaningful way, the world has already ended centuries ago. Whether the US government is a moral institution is a question that we've gotten the answer to every single day since its founding. So I think that should cheer you up. But more importantly, I believe that seeing this as a long-term project with a lot of moving parts and with my cat on the sofa next to me and with voting as just a tiny piece of the puzzle and maybe not even part of the puzzle whatsoever gives a much more accurate perspective. That was pretty good. And so goddamn you for interrupting me.